60 kilometers east of Mount Isa, Queensland, there is a pit filled with electric blue water. Geiger counters register elevated readings at the edge. No birds land on it. That is what remains of Mary Kathleen, a uranium mining town that Rio Tinto built from scratch, populated with 1,000 people, and then demolished entirely when the ore ran out. That place makes this list. So, Australia has ghost towns drowned by government decision that reappear every time the drought is bad enough. It has a Tasmanian port. The rainforest has been consuming since 1943, accessible only by a 7.5-kilometer hike through World Heritage Wilderness. And it has, number 1, a place that does not appear on any government map, cannot legally be entered, and is still claiming lives. Make sure you stay for that one. This channel covers the place's history forgot. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Today we are counting down 12 Australian ghost towns you were never supposed to know exist. Number 12, Kookynie, Western Australia, the town where a horse runs the bar. 13 people live in Kookynie. The Grand Hotel, opened in 1902, is the only functioning establishment in town. And at some point, nobody can say precisely when, a retired racehorse named Willie walked through the front door and decided he was not leaving. That is the headline. The backstory goes like this. Gold was discovered near Kookynie in 1895. By 1907, the population had reached 3,500. The town had 11 hotels, a brewery, 4 trains a day from Kalgoorlie, 113 kilometers to the south, and the first public swimming baths in the WA goldfields. Then, the cosmopolitan mine ran dry. People drifted out over the following decades, leaving behind rusting cars, crumbling brick walls, and one functioning pub. Willie the Chestnut Gelding now stands at the bar, inspects guests, and has been known to sample their drinks. He has a Facebook page. His social media following is larger than the current human population of Kookynie. What people actually drive 2.5 hours from Kalgoorlie to see is a horse at a bar, looking at them like they are the unusual ones. Number 11, Farina, South Australia, the town that refused to stay dead. Farina is located 650 kilometers north of Adelaide, deep in the Lake Eyre Basin, and its name means flower. That is not incidental. The town was founded in 1878 to serve wheat farmers who believed the Outback could be cultivated well beyond Geiger's line, the surveyed boundary of reliable rainfall. During a run of unusually wet years, in the early 1882, Farina reached a population of around 600. 2 breweries, 2 hotels, a bakery, a general store, a post office, and a brothel. Then the rain stopped, which is what rain in the South Australian Outback eventually does. The school closed in 1957, the post office in 1960, the general store in 1967, the last train ran through in 1980. The final permanent residents left in the early 1982. The stone building stood empty for decades in the heat. In 2008, a retired tradesman from Victoria named Tom Harding drove through, looked at the ruins, and formed the Farina Restoration Group. Since 2009, between 30 and 150 volunteers, stonemasons, carpenters, archaeologists have traveled to the middle of the South Australian desert every winter to stabilize walls and restore 9 original stone buildings. They also restored the underground bakery, a subterranean stone oven sunk below street level, cooled by the earth around it. It operates for 2 months a year, staffed entirely by unpaid volunteers, selling fresh bread to passing travelers in a town that has no permanent residents, a ghost town with a functioning bakery open for business. The logic does not quite hold. Neither, it turns out, does the idea that a town can simply be left to die. Number 10. Walhalla, Victoria. The town that had electricity before almost anyone, then lost it for 114 years. Here is the detail that stops people cold. In 1884, the Long Tunnel Mine installed electric streetlights in Walhalla, making it one of the earliest communities in the Southern Hemisphere to have them. The mine's generator powered the lights. It also powered everything else. The commerce, the 4,000 people settled into a steep, narrow valley in the Gippsland Ranges, in satellite settlements named Happy-Go-Lucky and Mormontown and Black Diamond. When the Long Tunnel extended closed in 1911 and the Long Tunnel itself in 1914, the power went off. And it stayed off. Walhalla's geography kept the grid at bay for the entire 20th century. A narrow switchback road through dense mountain forest, a valley so tight the buildings line a single creek. Residents who wanted electricity ran diesel generators. On the 21st of December 1998, Walhalla became the last mainland community in Australia to be connected to the electricity grid. Apple had released the iMac 4 months earlier. The town's history goes back to 1863, when gold was first discovered by a man named Edward Stringer, who died of tuberculosis that same year. Flatland was so scarce that in the 1,890 seconds, miners hand-cut a cricket oval from a steep hilltop far above the valley. The cemetery is built directly into the hillside, graves stacked up the slope, because there was nowhere flat to put them. Fewer than 20 people live there now. The valley draws 130,000 visitors a year. Every one of them has electricity. Number 9. Cook, South Australia, the Queen City of Nowhere. Someone had to maintain the Trans-Australian Railway. When the line was completed in 1917, linking Port Augusta to Kalgoorlie across the Nullarbor Plain, that task fell to the Commonwealth Railways, so they built a town at the midpoint. They named it Cook, after Sir Joseph Cook, Australia's 6th Prime Minister. At its peak, Cook had over 200 residents. A 2-story school opened in 1919, a hospital, a swimming pool, a golf course, an oval. The town sat directly adjacent to the longest straight stretch of railway in the world, 478 kilometers, with no curve, no bend, no variation. In 1997, the railways were privatized. Pacific National, the new owner, determined it did not need a support town. The population dropped from around 50 to 4 within months. Those 4 are Pacific National employees maintaining the track. The Indian Pacific passenger train stops at Cook twice a week. It is the only scheduled stop on the Nullarbor Plain. Passengers have about 30 minutes to walk the abandoned streets. The swimming pool is still there. Dry, cracked, full of dust, the school still stands. In 1982, the community planted 600 gum saplings. Those trees are fully grown now, the only shade for 100 kilometers in any direction, visible from the highway as an inexplicable smudge of green on a perfectly flat horizon. The hospital still keeps medical supplies in case of a train accident. The sign outside reads, "If you're a crook, come to Cook." No one was left to take it down. Number 8. Cossack, Western Australia. The town that pearled the world, then drowned in silence. You reach Cossack by crossing a causeway over tidal salt flats. 8 bluestone buildings materialize ahead of you as you cross. Structures from the 1,870 seconds and 1,880 seconds solid, standing exactly as they were left. The causeway itself, built in the 1,870 seconds, is still the only road in. Cossack was established in 1863, originally called Tan Tin Sin Harbour. It became the birthplace of the Western Australian pearling industry. By the early 1,870 seconds, up to 80 pearl luggers operated from the port. A cyclone destroyed every vessel in 1881. The fleet rebuilt. By 1886, the main fleet had migrated north to Broome, where the grounds were better. The town continued as a port for the Pilbara goldfields, but its purpose was narrowing. In 1910, a new jetty opened at Point Sampson with deeper water for modern ships. Cossack was dissolved. By the late 1940 seconds, the last residents were gone. 8 buildings were listed by the National Trust. A restoration project began in 2007. The town is now gazetted as a museum town, which is a formal way of saying exactly one person lives there. A caretaker, employed to keep the ghost town tidy for the visitors who occasionally come. One person, responsible for 8 National Trust buildings, a causeway, and the memory of an industry that once employed thousands, in a town 1300 kilometers north of Perth, accessible by a single road across the tide. That is the full-time job. Number 7. Joadja, New South Wales, the Scottish colony that American oil killed. In the late 1872, a British company found oil shale in a valley in the Southern Highlands, 135 kilometers from Sydney. They needed workers with specific extraction skills. Those workers were in Scotland, where shale oil had been refined since the 1852. The company went to Scotland, recruited over 1,300 people. Men, women, and children paid their passage to Australia, deducted the fare from their wages at 5 shillings a week, and placed them in the valley. They did not set up a temporary camp. They built a town. Joadja had a post office, a pub, a church, a school, a hospital, miners' cottages, a narrow-gauge railway to Mittagong, a distillery, and a brewery. Workers earned approximately £3 per week, roughly double what they had made in Scotland. The main street was renamed Carrington Row after the governor of NSW, formerly strolled through it on one of his visits. Managers lived on the brick-built eastern side. Workers lived on Stringy Bark Row to the west. It operated for 33 years. Then American oil companies flooded the Australian market with cheaper imported kerosene, and the government removed the tariff protection. The MAF stopped working in 1911. The valley was abandoned. The shale retort ovens, the brick kilns used to extract oil from the rock by heat, still stand in the undergrowth. A distillery re-established. In 2014 runs guided tours most Saturdays and serves whiskey among ruins that have been returning to bush for over a century. The people who built all of it are just not there. We opened this video with that radioactive blue lake in Queensland. Let us know in the comments if that one stopped you. If you are enjoying the deep dive, a thumbs up helps more people find these stories. The next 4 entries are the heaviest on this list. Stay with us. Number 6. Kanowna, Western Australia. 12,000 people, 16 hotels, 0 buildings. In 1897, the population of Kanowna was 2,500. By 1899, it had surpassed 12,500, making it, at that moment, one of the largest concentrations of people in all of Western Australia. The town had 16 hotels, 2 breweries, and an hourly train service to Kalgoorlie, 20 kilometers away. Today, the Western Australian Tourism Commission describes Kanowna as a place where nothing remains except rubble, tourist markers, and memories. 2 cemeteries, a railway platform, some mine workings, that is the complete inventory. The alluvial gold ran out, then the shallow reef mines, then the deeper ones. Each exhaustion drove another wave of departures. Buildings were dismantled for parts or left to the WA sun and wind. By 1953, the town was fully abandoned. Within 50 years of peak population, there was essentially nothing to indicate 12,500 people had ever stood here. Here is the wild part. In 1898, while the gold was still flowing, 2 local pranksters painted a piece of scrap iron gold and circulated a rumor about a monster nugget worth 6,500 pounds. A young priest named Father Long had apparently witnessed it. He was pressured into announcing its location publicly from the balcony of Donnellan's Hotel. On the 11th of August, 1898, approximately 7,000 miners gathered and listened. Then they stampeded into the desert on horseback and bicycle and pegged thousands of claims. They dug for days. No gold was found. Father Long died of typhoid shortly after, aged 27. The name Kanowna, incidentally, comes from a Wankata Aboriginal word meaning place of no sleep. It seems appropriate. Number 5. Gwalia, Western Australia, the mine that made a president. In November 1897, the London-based mining firm Bewick Moring and Company sent a 23-year-old American mining engineer to inspect a gold mine 230 kilometers north of Kalgoorlie. His name was Herbert Hoover. He recognized the potential, was appointed the mine's first manager on the 17th of November 1897, and spent the next year overseeing operations, recruiting Italian workers to reduce costs, and commissioning the construction of a manager's house on the rise above the pit. He left for China in December 1898. He did not stay long at Gwalia, but the mine kept running without him. In 1929, Herbert Hoover became the 31st President of the United States. The Sons of Gwalia mine operated continuously until the 28th of December 1963, when it closed due to exhaustion of viable ore. The population fell from around 1200 to approximately 40 within 3 weeks of the announcement. In 1995, the Leonora Tourist Committee auctioned the right to restore individual miners' cottages. Over 100 people participated, and 27 buildings were restored in time for the town's centenary celebrations the following year. Gwalia Museum is free and open daily in the original mine administration buildings. It houses Australia's largest surviving steam winder, A1. A horsepower machine imported from England in 1912, still standing where it was installed. The house Hoover built on the hill overlooks the open-cut mine below. It operates now as a bed and breakfast. His office paperwork from 1897 and 1898 is on display in the museum next door. He was 23 years old when he built it. He had no way of knowing any of what came after. Number 4. East Pillinger, Tasmania. The port the forests swallowed. In 1897, a businessman named James Crotty formed the North Mount Lyo Copper Company with one objective: to build a complete transport network, mine to port, that cut out his competitor entirely. The copper mines were at Linda, deep in the mountains of western Tasmania. The port would be at Kelly Basin on Macquarie Harbour. He put money into all of it: a railway, 3 wharves, a sawmill, brickworks, an ore crusher, and 3 luxury saloon cars imported from England, fitted with reversible seats, center aisles, and brass fittings. In 1898, 1 year after founding the company, Crotty died in London. Construction continued without him. The port divided into East Pillinger, the industrial side, wharves, boilers, kilns, a sawmill, and West Pillinger, the residential side, with hotels, stores, a post office, and a police station. But in 1903, 5 years after Crotty's death, his company merged with the rival it had been built to destroy. The merged entity chose Strahan, 15 kilometers to the north, as its preferred port. Pillinger became unnecessary overnight. The last train left in January 1925. Most structures were dismantled. The last family departed in 1943. The Tasmanian temperate rainforest has been moving back in ever since. To reach what remains of East Pillinger, you walk 7.5 kilometers from Kelly Basin Road, along the former railway alignment and river, through the Franklin Gordon Wild Rivers National Park, a Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area. The forest closes in within minutes. Then the ruins appear without warning from the undergrowth. 2 enormous steam boilers rising from the forest floor, framed by tree ferns. Brick updraft kilns with their arched fire holes still intact. Jetty remnants at the water's edge. Fragments of those brass-fitted English railway carriages rusting in the ferns inside the brick kilns where fire once burned. The Tasmanian rainforest has grown through the mortar. Tree roots push through the walls. The ruins did not look 80 years abandoned. They look ancient, as if the forest generated them itself, and they were never anything else. Number 3. Mary Kathleen, Queensland. The town nobody was supposed to find again. In 1955, Rio Tinto Mining formed Mary Kathleen Uranium Limited and began constructing a town in Outback, Queensland, 60 kilometers east of Mount Isa. This was not a camp or a collection of portable buildings. It was an architect-designed permanent township with reticulated water and proper streets. By 1961, approximately 1,000 people lived there. A school, a hospital that delivered over 200 babies, a cinema, sports, ovals, banks, a community store, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and a golf course. A contract signed in 1956 committed the mine to supplying 4,082 tons of uranium oxide to the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority. The mine closed in 1963 when that contract was fulfilled ahead of schedule. It reopened in 1974. It closed permanently in 1982. Then came the rehabilitation. Between 1982 and 1985, at a cost of $19 million, the entire township was demolished. Buildings, infrastructure, paving, removed or bulldozed. What had been a functioning community for 26 years was erased. Concrete slabs where houses stood, the outline of the old swimming pool, an old fountain. These traces are essentially all that remain above ground. The mine told a different story. The open pit filled with water over the following decades. The water collected copper, magnesium, silica, radioactive radium, and thorium from the surrounding rock. It turned a color with no natural equivalent, a vivid electric blue, something that looks artificial, like a special effect. Locally, it is known as Little Blue Lake. No birds land on it, no fish live in it. The Queensland government still lists the rehabilitation as ongoing. Geiger counters register elevated readings at the edge. The signs say do not swim. People have been documented swimming in it. The town was demolished so thoroughly, there is almost nothing left to show 26 years of community life. A concrete slab, a fountain outline, the depression where a pool once held Olympic water. The mine refused to be erased. It just changed color. Number 2. Old Adaminaby, New South Wales. The town that comes back from the dead. Here is what makes this different from every other entry on this list. Old Adaminaby is not demolished. The forest has not consumed it. It is underwater. And when the drought is severe enough, it comes back. The town was established in 1830 in the Snowy Mountains, 300 kilometers south of Sydney, and it functioned for over 120 years. Then, in 1949, the Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme commenced, the largest engineering project in Australian history. The plan required flooding the Yucumbene Valley to create Lake Yucumbene, the largest water storage in Australia, holding approximately 6 times more water than Sydney Harbour. Between 1956 and 1957, over 800 residents were relocated 9 kilometers over a hill to a new planned settlement. More than 100 houses and commercial buildings were moved. Some timber houses were loaded onto trucks intact. St. John's Church of England was dismantled stone by stone and rebuilt at the new site. The stone pubs could not be moved, they were bulldozed. About 1/3 of residents chose the new town, the rest took compensation and left. By 1958, the dam was complete. Old Adaminaby went under. In 2007, during one of Australia's most severe droughts on record, the water level of Lake Yucumbene fell to less than 20% of capacity. The ruins of the old town appeared for the first time in nearly 50 years. Stone foundations, fence lines, road surfaces, the gradient of Denison Street, the former Main Street, visible above the waterline once more. Locals used Denison Street as a boat ramp to access the depleted lake. People who had watched the water rise as children walked down that street again as elderly adults. Former resident Lee Stewart told reporters at the time, "We couldn't believe it when the old streets started to reappear." The NSW State Heritage Register has formally designated this place the Old Adaminaby Drowned Landscape. It covers all relics and movable objects within the lake. In a full year, you cannot see any of it. Some years, everything rises. Number 1. Wittenoom, Western Australia. The town that killed everyone who loved it. The road is not on any map. The signs that once pointed to it were painted over. The turnoff from the Pilbara Highway is unmarked. If you crossed that line and walked in, you would be entering what is classified as the largest asbestos-contaminated site in the Southern Hemisphere. That classification has a specific physical meaning. The dust is in the soil, in the creek beds, in the gorge, walls, in the air when the wind picks up. You cannot see it, you cannot smell it. It does not announce itself. This is the place called Wittenoom. Before June 2007, it appeared on maps. After June 2007, it did not. The government degazetted it, removed its name from every official document, every road sign, every map. The name had been there since 1950, when a town site was gazetted to house workers at a blue asbestos mine. Blue asbestos, crocidolite, was discovered in Wittenoom Gorge in the 1930 seconds. Between 1950 and 1966, Wittenoom was Australia's sole supplier of it. Western Australia was one of only 3 places in the world where crocidolite could be commercially mined. The company needed workers. Workers needed families. Families needed schools, a hotel, shops, an open-air cinema, an airport. The government built the town properly. What nobody in the 1950 seconds fully understood, and what the company may have known earlier than it acknowledged, was that crocidolite fibers, microscopic, durable, impossible to remove once inhaled, cause mesothelioma. Mesothelioma is uniformly fatal. The average prognosis from diagnosis to death is 9 months. Residents used the asbestos tailings, the fine waste from the mine, as fill for their gardens. The schoolyards were surfaced with it. The racetrack was surfaced with it. The airport runway was built with it. Parents watched their children play in it. Teachers taught in classrooms whose floors contained it. The mine closed in 1966. The disease came later, as it always does. At least 300 of the 1,500 Western Australians diagnosed with mesothelioma had direct Wittenoom connections. More than 4,000 Australians die each year from asbestos-related diseases, a national legacy that includes but is not limited to Wittenoom. The government attempted to empty the town through the 1,970 seconds, 1,980 seconds. Some residents refused to leave. The 2022 Wittenoom Closure Bill enabled compulsory acquisition of the 14 remaining privately owned properties. By then, 3 residents were left, living without electricity, without mail service, without road signs, in a town that had not appeared on any map for 15 years. Demolition commenced in May 2023. The cemetery was not demolished. As of 2023, the government had not informed families of those buried there when or whether they could visit the graves. Kookynie National Park borders the contaminated zone. It receives 250,000 visitors a year. Most of them drive past the unmarked turnoff to Wittenoom without knowing it is there. The gorge is still beautiful. The dust is still there. There are dozens more of these stories across Australia. Towns flooded on purpose, poisoned by extraction, abandoned overnight when a single contract ended. We did not get to all of them. The one that stayed with me is Pillinger, a man who built an empire and died before it was finished, and the forest that moved in while nobody was watching. Which entry surprised you most? Tell us in the comments. And subscribe, there is more to find.